Establishing policy related to commercial solar and wind projects relative to payment in lieu of taxes agreements. The Finance Committee offered to file and moved its adoption. Resolved, this Board of Supervisors being hereby establishes a policy that a payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreement will be required for all commercial solar and wind installations pursuant to New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 487-9. And be it further resolved, said pilot shall be for a term not to exceed 15 years and for county purposes only.
Seconded by Mr. Outwater. Mr. Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think on the surface, just reading this and reading the committee notes, that we're about to take a step backwards by making solar energy less likely to come here in commercial applications because we don't have to tax it, and now we're being given an opportunity to extract money through a pilot from these projects. So a company which has got an opportunity to locate on vacant land, farm land throughout the state is going to look upon, well, where's it going to cost me more? It's going to cost more now in Chenango County to come here with a commercial operation. And as I read the state law, trying to get ready for this meeting, it seems that we're going to have a pilot agreement on the mom and pop solar operation. If someone wants to put panels up and feed grandma's apartment across the road, it's going to be the same as someone comes in with a great big installation. So I asked myself, what's the advantage of discouraging solar energy? I mean, I look at this board has dealt over the last decade with a couple of energy extravaganzas. We've had fracking gas, frack gas, where we've been through that, and then we now have the solar revolution, where the sun shines, we concentrate the light, turn it into electricity, it feeds into three-phase power, nice and neat, no noise, no water pollution, no honey wagons filled with drinking water injecting into wells, no tearing up of our roads. I saw nowhere in the committee notes any indication of like the social benefits and actually the financial benefits for the county as a whole by encouraging clean energy. So I think like for us, now we haven't, I would like to know this, have we asked any of the solar installers, solar companies, what they think of this? I know that customarily when a company wants to build a pipeline, we go to the company and ask them, what's your rationale for wanting what you want to do to deliver your form of energy? And then often we'll take their thoughts on this, get into resolution of support. Have we done this with the solar companies? And we said, you know, what's going to be the impact on your coming to Chenango County if we decide we're going to tax you over 15 years through a payment in lieu of taxes? And then after that, slap them with a full tax. I think we have to look at what we're encouraging and what we're discouraging. And we want to encourage farmers, other landowners to come up with the best way to provide us with power, an environmentally friendly way to do it. The state, which I don't always agree with their tactics, but they've come up with a 15-year exemption saying we don't have to tax these things. We don't have to make it more difficult to come here. We've recently had experience with the Norwich City project for solar. And this ran aground right on the very same issue we're dealing with right here. It was going to cost them too much in the long run over taxes. So now it's gone, right? Now we don't get it. And you're going to see the same thing with project after project. We come up with like an initiative that's, we send this out before we have anything in place to say, okay, solar companies, we're not a solar-friendly county. We don't want you coming here. We don't have to take money. We don't have to make it more difficult, but we're going to do that anyway. I think we should look at the social benefits and I think long-term economic benefits of generating our own power here and try to encourage that. At the same time when we're doing this, I know there's an initiative coming from the IDAs to say to NYSEG, you're stymieing our economic growth because we don't have enough locally generated or locally available power. So on the one hand, we're saying, please give us more power, build more pipelines. We want to have more energy here so we can grow. At the same time, we say to the solar company, guess what? If you come here, we're going to tax you even though we don't have to. I just think it's a step backward. Thank you.
Further discussion on resolution 4.
Yes. I don't think that was the intent of where we were going with this. I think the intent was to establish a pilot that would actually encourage and be consistent with either solar or wind power companies coming in. I know I've been approached through the town of Guilford with a wind project, and one of the first things the company said, we expect that there will be a pilot. And I think part of this was to create some discussion about what this pilot might look like, how it's going to be so constructed as to encourage commercial entities to come into this county and not discourage them, because that is some sort of growth we may want to see. And this was a starting point. It doesn't say that you know, we're intending to discourage any sort of development in this nature. But it says, let's start having some discussion amongst the board and perhaps with the companies as to what's going to be workable.
Mr. Harris?
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
just
speak, please.
think that just to comment with 487. 487, the real property tax law, came out, I think, in the early 70s. At that time, there weren't commercial installations in New York State of solar and wind projects. That law has remained in place. It's a sunset law. Every 15 years it gets renewed for another 15 years. It was primarily designed, I believe, and many other people believe, for the residential property owner, not for commercial installation. If you look at the law change that allowed for pilot agreements with commercial properties, that happened a year after 2 large windmill projects went in New York State. That was the Fenner Windmill project and the one in Madison. Prior to that, there wasn't a provision that allowed for payment in lieu of taxes. I think that those projects going in, it was like, well, this exemption really wasn't designed for that type of property, so it's out there though. We want it for the residential property, so we'll allow communities to get some type of benefit, you know, for the commercial installations. And many places have. We're not the only county looking at putting some type of payment system in place. Schoharie County has done it. Tompkins County has done it. Fulton County has done it. Those are the ones that I know of right now. And other counties are looking at doing the same thing. And these pilot arrangements can be made property specific. They don't have to be uniform. Depending on the company coming in, each one can be negotiated separately. That's why we didn't put anything in this proposal saying it's going to be X number of dollars a megawatt. And you can differentiate between a commercial property and a residential. I don't think anyone has an intention of putting a pilot program in place for a residential install. Currently, we do have residential properties that do receive the exemption. In some cases, some towns, the assessor hasn't seen where they actually add value, so they haven't done, they haven't put the exemption out because they haven't added value for the installation. But this is really geared for a commercial installation. You do have to look at impact. I can guarantee you that if we have a windmill project going in, if a windmill project does go in town of Guilford, I can guarantee you people will be upset, up in arms. They will be seeking assessment reductions because of the view is obstructed now by windmills. It happened in town of Fenner. There was a lot of angst when that project went in place. The same thing with solar panels. Depending on the size of the solar array, someone's going to look at it. And that person's going to come to the town saying, my property value's been inhibited because of this project. And this is just a way to be able to, I'm going to say, recoup some of that money that may be lost. But that's it. As far as, I just really want to say the 487 is really designed for residential type properties, not commercial. So that's why in 2002, the section was put in to allow for the payment in lieu of taxes.
Mr. Law?
I have a project coming in the town of Norwich that's going to be fairly large. It's going to be commercial, but in that project, it's supposed to give back to 500 homes a 10% tax reduction in their electric. So that's something that I can't really go along with.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I think, I don't think it's a county intent, well, it certainly wasn't with my intent anyway. The pilot that we're gonna put in is on commercial property, not on residential property, and I think, Tom, I just want to make sure you understood that. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Stein?
I've already done this in my town. We passed a resolution a few months ago through our town attorney specifically exempting private people, private families putting in their solar for their personal use. We did also set a pilot for 15 years on any commercials coming into the town of Berlin.
Mr. Priest?
Yes, thank you. I see in the resolution that right now, whereas New York State real property tax law states that solar, wind, and farm waste energy are exempt for 15 years. And then in the resolve part, we get rid of the farm waste part, but we go back with the solar and the wind. Is there any reason we have to include the solar with the wind? Because I have heard of complaints about solar, pardon me, of wind installations, shadow flicker, the other sorts of things. But I have not heard the same kind of complaints about solar that I've heard about wind or about fracking and the other ways we get our energy around here. So I don't know why those two have to be combined. And as far as Mr. Senek's point, I think that I understand there's good intentions here. I just think that when you tax something, you tell people you're going to be taxed, you're going to pay more than you'd have to pay if we just followed the state requirements. You're not encouraging them to come here. You're discouraging them. You're raising the cost of their doing business. As far as private installations and commercial installations, let's face it, most of our constituents are never going to be able to afford private installations. If we're going to bring this to our constituents in large numbers, it's going to be through commercial applications. So we're going to tax or require them to pay in lieu of tax if they want to serve more than just themselves. It just does not seem to make sense. Why don't we let this golden goose lay a couple of eggs before we try to fight over who's getting the yolk?
Mr. Heisler?
This resolution kind of lacks specificity, doesn't it? I mean, when we're talking about this, I mean, is there some kind of number that, percentage? How do you approve a resolution like this that seems somewhat open-ended? How do we know what we're voting on or approving?
We're voting on a policy.
Well, okay. All right.
This may be for Steve, but my understanding in this resolution, we're not stating what the pilot agreement is, only that we will initiate a pilot program. Any individual town can put in what pilot amount that they feel is appropriate for their town. In other words, if you want to go to 0 or 100%. And as far as Tom's remark, this is a commercial, this is geared towards commercial entities. We have good electricity in Chenango County. And in fact, in Chenango County in upstate New York, we pay only half, a little bit more than half of what downstate pays. And even in Delaware County, they pay more for electricity than we do. So we have, although it's high, I'd like to see it go down, but we do have good electric here. And companies that come in that are for-profit should contribute to the tax base of these towns and counties. So, not taxing them, we don't go down Main Street and say, geez, you bring in some work here. I mean, I believe in pilot programs, but if you don't opt out of this thing, you're going to, if you do opt out of it, you're going to be able to set that pilot program, I think. Is that right, Steve?
It's not opting out of the exemption. That's another option. A number of communities across the state have opted out of the exemption. The 47 exemption is in place unless a municipality, a tax levy body, opts out of it. This isn't to opt out of it. This is just to say if these type of properties are coming into the area, we'd like to sit down and negotiate a pilot payment with you for county purposes.
Right, and that negotiation can then...
It could be from anything, if you look at 47, it could be anything from 0 to what full taxes would be. And I don't think anyone's looking at what full taxes would be.
Okay, further, Mr. Outlaw.
Mr. Chairman, I guess the question would be, when they put these farms in, where does the power go? Because it's my understanding that sometimes the power doesn't even go local. It goes to someplace in Connecticut or New Jersey. I mean, that doesn't really help our taxes, our electric rates. So my question, where we should look at these, where does the power go?
Mr. Court.
It's nice that Tom and I can agree on something. Taxes have been detrimental. The heavy taxation has hurt us. If you want to see how people are voting with their feet, look at the empty houses that we see around us. The school, the classroom size have shrunk practically in half. So I do agree with you with that, but we also have a very targeted tax cut here, or tax break completely, as you're proposing, that is inherently unfair. Number one, the solar industry is heavily subsidized by the government to begin with. That Solar City wouldn't even exist without a $2 billion seed money that they put up. So companies like that are already subsidized. Number two, if we give them the break that they're asking for, what you're asking for, then somebody else has to make up the difference. Somebody else has to subsidize them in order to get them. Those costs still exist. So somebody else is going to carry the load for them. And one of the unfair things that I've seen is how unfairly and how unevenly that the gas industry has been treated in this county. Gas, which would run a factory, which would run a plant, that could actually create manufacturing jobs, where solar is a supplement compared to what natural gas does. They pay 100%. There is no tax break, there is no pilot for them. So if we're going to treat one energy source one way, then we should do it with all of them.
Mr. Chairman, yes, I think it's good that we're comparing those two, and I'm glad we're agreeing on part of this. If you look at the fossil fuel industry, it's got the U.S. Navy escorting their ships back and forth. That's a pretty good subsidy. How many wars have been fought over fossil fuel reserves? So certainly government supports all kinds of energy production. I think you have to look at the two kinds of production as they impact this county. You've got one where the sun shines, it hits some mirrors, they turn into electricity, feed it into a three-phase power connection, and guess what? It's there, whether it goes to us or someone else, and I'm fine with having it go to us. But it's there, and it's clean, and it's direct. Now the other way, what do? You've got sun hit something millions of years ago, it got buried under the ground, we're going to dig down to it, then we're going to take our water, we're going to put it in septic trucks, pump it down there, explode the earth, hopefully it comes back up the pipe, and when it comes back up the pipe, we're going to have some polluted water, try to get rid of that, and the rest of it, we're going to burn it. Now, which makes more sense? That's what I'm saying, look at the two competing technologies that we've dealt with the last 10 years, and which is the way to go for us.
Well, you and I will have that debate in the Economic Development Committee. We'll definitely have that. All I'm saying is that if you're going to have an energy policy, I'd appreciate if it would look at the energy that we're sitting on top of right now, which is right here in our county. These wells could do much more for us than they're doing now. They're laying dormant, and they're not supplying these companies with the energy they need to create jobs. So I'm looking at an overall picture in energy.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, Tom is making excellent points about solar energy, no doubt about it. And our country needs to go that direction. We just need to do that. And at the same time, I think what Mr. Corey is saying about being fair is fair. And I guess as long as our pilot project doesn't take the opportunity to penalize them. And I guess what I'm seeing is in my town, if it costs $100,000 to run my town, and everybody is taxed at a rate to support that base. And if somebody decides to put up 100 acres worth of solar, how did they walk away from that responsibility? I'm not saying that we should be taxing them over and above, but we should at least try to get back what we had before. And I think that's going to be the key to this pilot, is to make sure that it's not prohibitive, it's just fair. And I think you can go to a solar developer and say, listen, we understand what you want to do, we understand how you're going to operate. And when you put this installation in, there's still a responsibility for that piece of land in my town to pay its share. We're not telling you to go over and above that, but at least pay your share. And I think you'll find that most of them are more than happy to do that. The other thing that's happening with a lot of this developments is close to the wind guys up here. They were saying, if you don't give us the tax break, we're going to walk away from the windmills because they don't make enough money to pay. And we don't want to get in that argument either. And we don't want to deal with people from Madison Avenue or someplace else who are involved in that or alternate energy for tax breaks, and that's the only reason. But I think truly to support solar, they got to stand up and say, we're going to be fair. And if there's other things that we can do to help you, absolutely. But at the same time, you got to be fair to the rest of the people in your community. And you do that by paying your taxes.
I believe in the fairness concept, Dennis, and I think you made some good points. I would point out, though, that when we're trying to push fracking and gas that way, what do we have? Compulsory integration. Doesn't matter if most people in the unit want it or not. We got a little law that kind of sneaked through 2 or 3 years before the landmen came around saying, you're gonna do it because someone's decided that. Now that's really helping one industry over another. There's no compulsory integration to put a solar array on this property. And then how do you get it to market? Oh, well, we'll condemn your land to run the pipeline across it. You're not running into these kinds of problems. You're not treating our constituents the same way with solar. It's a voluntary thing. Do it. I'm just saying, let's not discourage it. Let's get off the ground. Let's be known as the solar capital of upstate New York.
I think we need to remember that this resolution is only dealing with county purpose taxes. It has no tie to town taxes, village taxes, school taxes. It's only county purpose. Dr. Weinberg?
Just a brief comment in that the solar energy industry is also out to make money. And I agree with what Dennis says and fairness. And I think that we shouldn't be prohibitive, but I think that we should be able to all have them pay their fair share of having the privilege of setting up their commercial installations in our county.
Mr. Chairman, one quick comment. My brother's put in a solar operation on their dairy barn to get hot water. And we can go up there today and open up this little tank and look in the back, and it's the temperature of that water from that solar is like up around 200 degrees. And like with that, you go, yeah, Arabs, you can keep your oil. We don't need it. We're going to make a power here. So it's certainly there, and I think we're going in the right direction. I think we will continue to do that.
Okay. I think we've hammered that quite well. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor of resolution number 4?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Mr. Grace, so noted.
I did.
Oh, Mr. Law. Right, so resolution carries with 2